10 years after feeding two orphan girls a warm meal, a luxury spaceship appeared at his door. The colony was small, with low buildings made of metal sheets and worn concrete. The streets were narrow, and the air often smelled of oil and smoke from the factories that worked day and night. People here lived hard lives. They woke early, worked long hours, and slept when they could. It was not a place for comfort or dreams. It was a place to survive. Daniel had lived here all his life. He was a quiet man, not very tall, with hands hardened from work and a face that rarely smiled. He repaired machines, cargo loaders, and small freighters that came through the colony's spaceport. His earnings were small, just enough to rent a tiny room above his workshop and buy simple food. He lived alone, and most days he did not talk to anyone except when a job required it. One evening, a rainstorm hit Arden. It came suddenly, dark clouds filling the sky and strong winds whipping dust into the streets. Daniel was closing his workshop, locking the doors, when he heard soft sobs from behind a pile of crates. At first, he thought it was some lost child or a drunk person, but when he moved closer, he saw two small girls, shivering and wet, hiding under a torn tarp. They looked no older than 10 or 11. Their clothes were ragged and their faces were pale. Their eyes widened as they saw him. "Please, sir," one of the girls whispered. Can we stay?" Daniel looked at them for a moment. He could have turned away. He could have said they had to leave and called the local authorities. No one in the colony ever helped anyone for free. But he remembered a time, long ago, when someone had helped him when he had nothing. He knew what it was like to be cold, hungry, and alone. "Come inside," he said simply. He lifted the tarp and led them into the workshop. The air inside was warm from the small heater in the corner. The girls shivered less as they stepped inside. We haven't eaten in days," the other girl said quietly. Daniel shook his head. "Then let's fix that first." He went to the small kitchen corner of his workshop. He had very little, but he made a simple meal, a stew with some vegetables, a bit of bread, and water. He put it in 2 bowls and handed them to the girls. Their eyes lit up and they ate quickly, almost ravenously. Daniel watched them quietly, leaning against the wall. He did not know their names yet, but he would learn soon. "I'm Lily," said the first girl, her mouth full. "I'm Grace," said the second shyly. "Lily, Grace," Daniel repeated. "Good names. You'll be safe here for tonight." He gave them blankets and let them sit by the heater. The girls were quiet now, their hunger filling the emptiness in their bodies. Daniel thought about how easy it would be to ignore them, but he did not want to. He had no family, no friends to speak of, but somehow, helping these two felt right. As the storm raged outside, Daniel sat at his workbench, fixing a small broken loader while keeping one eye on the girls. He heard them whispering to each other in soft voices, talking about nothing important, just to keep their minds away from fear and hunger. Daniel smiled slightly. He liked the sound of that. The night was long. The rain kept falling and lightning lit the workshop windows. Lily and Grace eventually fell asleep on the floor, huddled under the blankets. Daniel covered them carefully with an extra blanket he had in his room. He thought about the life these girls had before they arrived here. They looked scared, alone, and lost. He hoped they had someone to care for them, but if not, he would be there for this night. In the morning, the rain had stopped. The streets were wet, and the colony smelled of fresh dust and metal. Daniel woke early and found the girls already awake, sitting quietly and eating the leftover stew he had saved for them. They smiled at him shyly. "Thank you," Lily said, "for helping us. We don't have anywhere else to go." Daniel nodded. "It's okay. Sometimes all we can do is help when we can." The girls hesitated. Then Grace said, "We have to go now. Someone might be looking for us." Daniel felt a pang in his chest. He wanted to ask where they were going, who they were, or if they had family, but he also knew that pressing would scare them. He simply said, "Be careful, and don't forget, there's always someone willing to help, even in the darkest places." The girls hugged him quickly, then ran off into the streets. Daniel watched them disappear around a corner, feeling a strange emptiness. The workshop was quiet again, the heater warming the space but not his heart. He returned to his workbench and continued fixing loaders, telling himself it was just a small act. It would not change anything. It was only one meal, one night of warmth. Yet for Daniel, something inside shifted. He had realized that even a small kindness could matter, even if he never saw the result. The colony continued its normal noise and bustle, people working and struggling, but Daniel felt a tiny light inside him. He had done something good, and for now, that was enough. Days passed, weeks passed, and the memory of Lily and Grace faded as memories often do. Life on Arden did not slow for acts of kindness. Daniel continued his work, repairing machines and living quietly, his life simple but steady. He thought sometimes of the two girls, wondering where they had gone and if they had survived. He hoped they were safe, but he never expected to see them again. He believed that small acts were like seeds in the wind. Sometimes they grow in ways no one notices. Little did he know that one night, one meal, and one decision to care had set something in motion that would reach across the stars. Something that would, many years later, return to his door in a way he could never imagine. For now, though, Daniel went about his days quietly. He did not speak much, did not expect much, and did not ask for thanks. The workshop was his world, the machines were his companions, and the colony was his home. But in the back of his mind, a small thought remained, one small hope, that the girls he had helped were alive and well, and that somewhere they remembered a quiet man who once gave them warmth and food when the world had nothing to offer. And that night, as the sun set over the dusty buildings, Daniel locked the workshop and sat for a while, watching the sky. He did not know what the future held, but for the first time in years, he felt a connection to someone beyond himself, someone he would never see again, yet someone who had changed him in ways he could not yet understand. 10 years had passed since Daniel Price fed Lily and Grace. On that rainy night, the colony on Arden had changed very little. The streets were still dusty, the buildings still worn, and life was still hard. Daniel had aged a little. His hair had more gray, and his hands were rougher than before. He continued repairing machines and freighters, living a quiet life without expecting much. Most days, he barely noticed the passing of time. He often remembered the two girls, though. Sometimes late at night, when the colony was quiet and the stars shone above the dusty sky, he would think, "I wonder where they are now. I wonder if they survived." He never spoke of it to anyone. He did not have friends to share it with, and neighbors often left him alone. But the memory stayed with him, a small, soft warmth in his heart that never left completely. Life had been hard on Daniel, but he had learned to live with it. He repaired machines for small freighters and traders who passed through the colony. He fixed broken doors, leaking fuel pumps, and sometimes even small transport drones. His earnings were enough to keep him in his small room above the workshop and to buy simple meals. He did not have much, but he did not complain. He was used to quiet living, used to survival. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, Lily and Grace had grown up in ways Daniel could never have imagined. After leaving Arden that night, they had found shelter with an old trader named Mason. Mason was kind but firm. He took them in, gave them food, and helped them survive. Under his care, the girls learned quickly. They studied star maps, navigation, and basic mechanics. They learned about human settlements, trade routes, and the politics that shaped the outer colonies. Lily and Grace were intelligent, quick learners, and determined to survive. They never forgot Daniel, the man who had fed them when no one else would. His simple act of kindness had stayed with them, shaping their idea of humanity. They grew into young women who understood that strength was not only in power or wealth, but in compassion, loyalty, and memory. They promised each other, quietly, that if they ever had the chance, they would repay that kindness in some way. As the years passed, Lily and Grace moved from one colony to another, always learning, always careful. They met people who taught them the ways of space trade, the ways of human diplomacy, and sometimes the ways of strategy and command. They became known for their intelligence and decisiveness. Soon, they were part of a rising human faction that spanned many star systems. Their influence grew because they understood people, because they remembered the small things that mattered most. Back on Arden, Daniel continued his quiet life. He repaired machines, helped neighbors when they asked, and never expected recognition or reward. Sometimes, when he fixed a freighter for a trader passing through, he would hear stories of humans making waves across the galaxy. Humans building fleets, humans defending colonies, humans taking part in events far beyond Arden. He listened quietly but never imagined that his small life could be connected to any of it. One evening, Daniel was working late, fixing a small freighter's engine. The sky was clear and the twin moons of Arden shone faintly above. He paused for a moment, wiping sweat from his brow, and thought of the girls again. He wondered if they had found a home, if they had grown strong and safe. The thought made him smile faintly. I hope they remember a small man with a warm meal, he thought to himself. Little did he know they did. The memory of that night had never left them. They had often spoken of him in quiet conversations, the man who gave us warmth, who did not ask questions, who simply helped. It was not only a memory of kindness, but also a lesson. Even the smallest action could ripple across years and light the path for the future. Over the years, Lily and Grace's faction grew more organized. They built ships, defended weaker colonies, and negotiated trade across the Outer Rim. Their leadership style was unusual, firm, yes, but always remembering the small acts of kindness that inspired loyalty in others. Many humans and alien species were surprised by their approach. They expected humans to be aggressive, competitive, or ruthless. Instead, they found leaders who remembered every favor, every gesture of trust, and who acted in ways that seemed impossible to predict. Lily and Grace often discussed one idea in particular. They wanted to find the man who had once fed them. It seemed a small, simple thing, but it was important to them. They wanted to see him, to thank him, to show him that a single act of kindness could echo across time and space. They did not know where he lived exactly, but they had pieced together small clues. One colony record mentioned Arden. One old trader remembered a mechanic named Daniel. They began tracking his life quietly, making sure they would not disturb him until they were ready. On Arden, life remained routine for Daniel. He repaired engines, loaders, and doors. Sometimes he helped people without being asked, quietly and without expectation. The colony had grown smaller. Many had left for richer worlds. The remaining people were harder to please, quieter, and more cautious. Daniel often worked alone, talking only to the machines he repaired or the few traders who stopped by. He liked it this way. It was peaceful. One morning, as he was cleaning his workshop, Daniel noticed the sky had a strange light. At first, he thought it was just the sunrise reflecting off dust clouds. But then he saw shapes moving among the stars, ships that he had never seen before, sleek and massive, unlike any freighters or cargo vessels that passed through Arden. They were quiet, but their presence was commanding. His heart did not race, but a small curiosity stirred in him. He returned to his workbench and continued repairing a loader, telling himself it was nothing unusual. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, Lily and Grace were preparing for their journey to Arden. They had commanded their flagship, a sleek human vessel, to depart from the Outer Rim and head directly toward the colony. They chose the ship for its speed, its technology, and its quiet presence. They did not want to announce their arrival to the entire galaxy. This was personal. The act of gratitude, the reunion with a man they barely knew but never forgot, needed to be private at first. They discussed their plans in the quiet of the bridge, the lights of distant stars reflecting in their eyes. "We should arrive at Arden at first light," Grace said. "We do not want to frighten him." Lily nodded. "He helped us when we had nothing. We cannot startle him. He deserves respect, not shock." They checked every system, every sensor, and every path to ensure they would not make a wrong turn. Their lives had taught them patience, planning, and precision. Nothing could be left to chance. Back on Arden, Daniel went about his evening routine. He ate a simple meal, cleaned his workshop, and prepared for the night. He thought again of the girls, though now he hardly knew why. Perhaps it was habit, a small echo of memory from long ago. He shook his head slightly and returned to his work. He had no reason to expect anything. But life, Daniel was about to learn, had a way of connecting past and present. The small kindness he had offered so long ago was not forgotten. It had grown quietly, like a seed in the dark, nourished by time and care. It had shaped decisions, inspired leadership, and reached across the galaxy. And soon, that quiet, unremarkable man would find that the universe had noticed his small acts. As the night settled on Arden, Daniel locked the doors of his workshop. He did not look up at the sky. He did not expect visitors, ships, or messages. He simply went to his room, sat by a small lamp, and reflected on his quiet life. He thought about the work he had done, the people he had helped, and the few choices he had made. He never imagined that one night, one meal, and one simple act of kindness would return to him in a way that would change everything. The galaxy continued its quiet hum, stars spinning, colonies moving, and ships crossing the void. Yet in that vast expanse, Lily and Grace approached, guided by memory, loyalty, and gratitude. The stage was set for a meeting that would bring the past and present together, for a reunion that would show that even the smallest human acts could echo across decades and across worlds. And Daniel, oblivious to what was coming, slept peacefully, unaware that his life was about to change forever. The quiet mechanic from Arden, the man who had done little more than feed two hungry girls one rainy night, was about to discover that the universe had a memory, and humans never forgot those who showed mercy. The morning sun rose slowly over the dusty colony of Arden. The streets were quiet, with only a few traders and workers moving about. The air was crisp, and the twin moons still hung faintly in the sky, fading as the sunlight grew. Daniel Price was already awake, as usual, checking the freighters that had arrived overnight. He repaired a small cargo loader, humming softly to himself. It was another ordinary day, or so he thought. Suddenly, a deep vibration ran through the ground. Daniel stopped his work, frowning. It was not a tremor nor a storm. It felt like something massive moving above him. He looked up and froze. The sky was clear, yet in the distance, a large shadow moved across the horizon. Slowly, he realized it was a ship, a luxury vessel unlike any he had ever seen. It glimmered in the sunlight, sleek and polished, with lights that pulsed along its hull. The ship descended, moving toward the colony with perfect precision. People on the streets noticed it too. Traders dropped their tools, laborers stopped walking, and children ran to see the strange craft. Murmurs spread quickly. What kind of ship is that? Is it human? Is it dangerous? No one had ever seen technology like this on Arden. The colony had small freighters and trade ships, but this ship was unlike any of them. It was large, powerful, and beautiful. Daniel felt a strange feeling in his chest. Part fear, part curiosity, and part something he could not name. He continued walking to the front of his workshop, wiping grease from his hands. The ship landed smoothly just outside his building. The ground shook slightly, but the colony did not panic. The ship's presence was quiet but commanding, and everyone instinctively stepped back. A ramp extended from the ship, touching the ground. Armed guards emerged, but they did not raise weapons. Instead, they formed a path leading toward Daniel's workshop. The crowd watched in silence, unsure of what was happening. The guards were disciplined and precise, their movements almost ceremonial. There was no threat in their stance, only order and purpose. And then Lily and Grace stepped down from the ship. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. They were older now, women who carried themselves with strength and authority. Their eyes were sharp and intelligent, and they wore uniforms that marked them as leaders in the human faction. They looked at Daniel directly, their gazes warm but commanding. "Daniel Price," Lily said, her voice clear and calm. "Do you remember us?" Daniel blinked, unable to speak at first. He stared at the two women, feeling a mix of disbelief and awe. It's you," he stammered. His voice trembled slightly. He could not believe what he was seeing. The small girls he had fed 10 years ago had grown into these remarkable leaders, and they had come to see him. Grace stepped closer. "We never forgot you," she said softly. "You helped us when no one else would. That night you gave us food and warmth. It was the first kindness we knew, and it changed our lives." Daniel shook his head, trying to clear his thoughts. I did what anyone might have done. I didn't think it mattered." Lily smiled faintly. "It mattered more than you know. Because of you we survived. Because of you we became who we are today." The guard stepped aside, forming a respectful distance. The people of the colony watched in awe. Whispers spread quickly. "Those girls, they are humans, but they have power." No one understood how humans could produce leaders so quietly, so subtly, yet with such strength. The presence of the ship and the calm authority of Lily and Grace left everyone speechless. Daniel finally found his voice. You've grown strong." He paused, searching for words. I don't know what to say." Grace reached out and touched his shoulder lightly. "You do not need to say anything. We came to thank you and to offer you something in return. You do not have to take it, but it is for you because you helped us when the world would not." Lily nodded. "We want you to come with us, not because you have power or skill, but because your heart is strong. Your kindness matters more than most people know. Come with us, Daniel. See the galaxy you helped shape." Daniel felt his chest tighten. He had lived quietly, never expecting recognition or reward. He had fixed machines, repaired freighters, and helped neighbors when he could. He had never imagined that any of it could matter beyond Arden. And yet, here were the two girls he had once helped, offering him a place among the stars. I don't know if I can," he said, his voice shaking. I'm just a mechanic. I don't belong on ships or among fleets." Grace smiled softly. "You belong wherever kindness belongs, and kindness belongs everywhere. You helped us when we were alone. Now let us help you." The crowd watched silently, feeling the weight of the moment. Humans had always been seen as strong, sometimes dangerous, sometimes unpredictable. But this was different. This was not aggression or conquest. This was gratitude, and the power behind it was more remarkable than any weapon or fleet. Daniel looked at the two women, their faces calm and confident, yet filled with warmth and respect. He thought about that rainy night 10 years ago, about the small meal, the blankets, and the warmth he had offered without expecting anything. And now that small act had returned to him, carried across the galaxy in a ship of wonder, guided by the memory of gratitude. Slowly he nodded. "All right, I will go with you." His voice was quiet but steady. It was a decision that would change his life forever. Lily and Grace smiled, and their guard stepped back, signaling that the moment was complete. The people of the colony whispered among themselves, amazed. The quiet man who had lived among them, unnoticed, had been chosen by humans who had grown into leaders and protectors of the stars. No one spoke of weapons, politics, or fleets. They only felt the power of a small human act returned in full. Daniel took a few steps toward the ship, his hands trembling slightly. He paused and looked back at the colony, at the dusty streets, the worn buildings, and the familiar faces. This had been his home for so long, yet he knew that life would never be the same. The galaxy awaited him, not because he had power, not because he had wealth, but because he had acted with a simple, honest heart. As he boarded the ship, he noticed the care and precision with which it was built. It was quiet inside, yet alive with energy. Panels glowed softly, machines hummed in harmony, and the stars outside seemed closer, brighter. Lily and Grace led him through the corridors, speaking little, allowing him to take in everything. It was overwhelming but not frightening. The feeling was right. It was a place where he belonged, in a way he had never known before. On the bridge, he finally stopped. He looked at the galaxy stretching out before him, a vast canvas of stars, planets, and possibilities. Lily and Grace stood by him, their presence a reminder of the small act that had changed so much. "Thank you," he said quietly, almost to himself. Grace placed her hand lightly on his arm. "No, Daniel, thank you for being who you are." The ship lifted from the ground, rising smoothly above Arden. The people below watched in awe as the massive vessel disappeared into the sky. Whispers filled the colony. That man, he changed everything without knowing it. Human kindness, it is stronger than we thought. Daniel stood silently, looking out at the stars, feeling a calm he had never known. He realized that life was not about power or wealth, but about the choices we make, even the small ones. A simple act of kindness, given without expectation, had traveled across years and space to return in a way he could never have imagined. As the ship soared through the galaxy, Daniel thought of Arden, of the rainy night, of the warmth he had given to two frightened girls. He understood now that humans had a memory, a loyalty, and a strength that went far beyond machines, weapons, or ships. It was in their hearts, their choices, and their actions. And now he would see it firsthand, guided by those he had once helped. The stars stretched endlessly before them, full of possibilities and new worlds. Daniel took a deep breath, letting the quiet wonder of it all sink in. He was no longer just a mechanic on a dusty colony. He was part of a story that had begun with a simple meal, a blanket, and the warmth of a human heart. And the galaxy would never be the same after boarding the ship. Daniel walked slowly through the corridors, feeling every step as if the floor itself was alive. He had spent his whole life fixing machines and repairing freighters, but this was different. The ship was massive, yet quiet. Machines hummed softly and lights glowed along the walls. It was orderly, yet full of life, as if it knew where everything belonged. Lily and Grace led him to a room that looked out across the stars. Large windows stretched from floor to ceiling, showing distant planets, twinkling stars, and the black velvet of space. Daniel felt a sense of awe he had never known. He had repaired freighters that traveled these routes, but never had he seen the galaxy from this perspective. It was beautiful, quiet, and immense. "We wanted you to see this," Lily said softly. "Not as a leader, not as a commander, but as someone who helped us when no one else would." Daniel nodded, still taking in the view. It's incredible. I don't know what to say," Grace smiled. "You don't need to say anything, just listen. We have much to tell you." They sat across from him and Lily began. "After that night on Arden, we survived because of your kindness. We learned, trained, and grew. We built alliances, defended weak colonies, and protected human settlements. Our faction now stretches across many star systems. We have ships, technology, and knowledge that few can match, but none of it would exist without you, not in spirit, not in heart." Daniel shook his head slowly. I'm just a mechanic. I fixed machines. I fed two girls one night. I never thought it would matter." Grace's eyes were steady. "It did matter, Daniel. Every decision, every small act matters. You saved us when we had nothing. You showed us that humans could be kind even when survival was hard. That lesson guided us. It gave us hope, and hope grows stronger than any weapon." Daniel looked down at his hands. He remembered the rough palms, the grease stains, the small meal he had shared. He had done it without expectation. He had never imagined it could echo across the stars. Lily continued, "Our human faction is not built on fear or conquest. It is built on loyalty, trust, and remembrance. We remember every act of kindness and every betrayal. We honor those who help, and we protect those who cannot defend themselves. We are growing because humans have the ability to connect, to remember, and to repay kindness in ways no one expects. Daniel listened, trying to absorb everything. He had lived a quiet life, never seeking recognition, and now he found himself at the center of something vast, something he had never imagined. He felt small, yet important in a way that surprised him. Grace added, "We also want to show you something else. Other species, other humans, and even some colonies across the galaxy have noticed our growth. Many were shocked. They expected humans to be aggressive, selfish, or unpredictable. Instead, they saw a human faction guided by compassion and loyalty. They saw leaders who never forget those who help and who repay kindness with action. They were stunned. Daniel's voice was quiet. "And that includes me," Lily nodded. "Yes, it includes you. Your small act returned to the galaxy in ways you could not imagine. Because of you, 2 lives were saved. Because of those 2 lives, a human faction grew that changed trade, alliances, and protection across star systems. All of it began with a simple choice you made 10 years ago." Daniel leaned back, feeling the weight of it all. He had spent his life fixing machines, helping neighbors, and surviving quietly. He never expected reward, recognition, or influence. And yet, here he was, standing among leaders, looking at the galaxy, and realizing that his actions had mattered more than he ever knew. Grace reached out and placed a hand on his arm. "We wanted you to understand that humanity's strength is not only in ships, weapons, or fleets. It is in memory, loyalty, and kindness. Small acts, given without expectation, can change lives and shape the future. You are living proof of that." Daniel nodded slowly. I never thought of it that way. I just wanted to help." Lily smiled. "And that is why it matters so much. Humans are not just powerful because of technology. We are powerful because of choices, actions, and hearts that remember. Even the smallest human act can ripple across years and space. You showed us that. We are here because of it." The ship moved smoothly through space, passing planets, asteroid fields, and distant star systems. Daniel watched quietly, listening to the explanations of Lily and Grace. They told him how they had built colonies, defended worlds, and negotiated trade agreements. They described fleets and technology, but always returned to the idea that the human heart was the foundation of their power. "We have many ships," Grace said, "but ships alone do not make us strong. People make us strong. Loyalty, courage, and memory make us strong. When humans remember those who show mercy, the effect can be unstoppable." Daniel took a deep breath. He had never imagined that feeding 2 girls one night could become the reason for fleets, colonies, and alliances. He thought of Arden, of the rainy night, and of the small meal he had shared. It seemed so simple then, yet now it had grown into something vast and unimaginable. Lily added, "We wanted you to see this not as a story, but as truth. The galaxy is watching humans, wondering what makes them unique. Some fear us, some admire us, but all are surprised when they see how loyalty and kindness shape our actions. It all starts with small acts like yours." Daniel's eyes widened slightly. He realized that the galaxy was not only large in space, but also large in consequence. One small choice, one simple act, could change far more than anyone imagined. He felt humbled but also proud in a quiet way. He had never sought recognition, yet he could see now that his choice had shaped the future in ways he could never have dreamed. Grace smiled again. "We also wanted to show you the other side. Humans have enemies, rival factions, and species who misunderstand our intentions. Some thought we would attack, conquer, or dominate. Instead, they saw a human faction that honors kindness and loyalty. They do not understand it, and many were stunned. We are proving that humanity is not only capable of survival, but capable of compassion, strategy, and intelligence. And you, Daniel, are the origin of it all." Daniel shook his head. overwhelmed. I never thought I would matter to anyone, let alone the galaxy." Lily reached out and took his hand. "You matter, and not because of fame or power. You matter because you acted with a good heart. Humans remember that, even when you do not expect it. That is what makes us strong." Daniel looked out at the stars, feeling the weight and wonder of it all. He thought of the small colony of Arden, the dusty streets, and the quiet people who lived simple lives. And he realized that even in that quiet place, small acts could echo across the universe, shaping leaders, shaping factions, and shaping the future. I don't know what to say," he whispered. Grace smiled softly. "You do not need to say anything. Simply understand that your choice, your kindness, and your heart are remembered. And now you are part of something larger, something greater than you ever imagined. The galaxy itself has seen your act return as strength, loyalty, and hope." Daniel nodded slowly, finally understanding. He had always believed that his life was ordinary, that his choices were small and meaningless. Now, he saw that even the smallest human action could ripple across years and space. It could change lives, shape civilizations, and return as something unstoppable. Lily added quietly, "We are here because of you. The galaxy watches us, and many are surprised. They do not understand how humans can act with such loyalty and memory. We are showing them through our actions that humans never forget. Even small kindness matters, and it always returns." Daniel leaned back in his chair, looking out at the stars. He realized that his life had changed forever. He was no longer just a mechanic on a dusty colony. He was part of a story that began with a simple act, a warm meal, and the choice to help when no one else would. And now, that story had grown to span the galaxy, led by humans who remembered and acted with purpose. For the first time, Daniel felt something he had never felt before, a quiet pride and a deep peace. He had done nothing extraordinary, yet the galaxy itself had been shaped by what he had done. He had helped 2 girls, and they had helped humanity grow. He understood now that even the smallest acts mattered, and that humans could be strong, not only in technology and ships, but in hearts, memory, and loyalty. And as the ship moved silently through space, carrying him across stars and toward new worlds, Daniel finally understood what it meant to be part of something greater. He had lived quietly, he had acted simply, and now the galaxy had noticed. And that was more than he could have ever imagined. The ship moved steadily through space, carrying Daniel away from the dusty colony of Arden. He stood by the large window in the observation room, watching stars drift past, feeling a quiet awe that had never left him. He had spent his life fixing machines, repairing freighters, and surviving quietly on a small, lonely colony. Now he was traveling among the stars, guided by 2 women he had helped as children. It felt unreal, and yet it felt right. Lily and Grace watched him closely, noticing his quiet wonder. They had grown used to commanding fleets, negotiating alliances, and planning strategies that affected entire star systems. But they had never seen a man respond to this kind of journey with such humility and awe. Daniel was different. He did not seek power or recognition. He only acted with honesty and kindness, and that had changed the course of the galaxy. "Daniel," Grace said softly, "we will show you the worlds we protect, the colonies we helped, and the people whose lives are better because of small acts like yours." Daniel nodded. I don't know if I deserve this. I helped 2 girls one night, that's all." Lily smiled. "You do deserve this, Daniel. It is not the size of the act that matters, but the heart behind it. You acted with care without thinking of reward. That is why we remember you, and why the galaxy will soon know your story." The ship glided toward the first colony. Daniel had never seen anything like it. It was larger than Arden, with tall buildings, clean streets, and fields of greenery that stretched across the planet. People moved through the streets freely, smiling, trading, and working together. There were no signs of fear or conflict. He realized this was a colony protected by the human faction. It thrived not because of fear or control, but because humans had chosen to act with loyalty, kindness, and protection. "We help them," Grace explained, "because no one should have to live in fear or hunger. We do not rule by force. We rule by care and action. Humans are stronger than anyone expects, but we are strongest when we remember who helped us and who we can protect." Daniel walked through the colony with Lily and Grace, feeling amazed. He met people who had heard of him but did not know him personally. Traders, workers, and children all bowed slightly or nodded in respect. It was strange to be noticed, to be recognized, not for power or wealth, but for something he had done quietly years ago. He felt humility and warmth at the same time. "They know who you are," Lily said, "but not the full story. We want you to see how one act, a simple act of kindness, can grow into something far greater than expected." Daniel visited schools, marketplaces, and repair shops. Children asked him questions, curious about the man who had once helped two girls. Adults thanked him quietly, acknowledging the small acts that had shaped their lives. Daniel realized that the ripple of a single action could reach further than anyone could imagine. He had lived simply, and yet in that simplicity he had unknowingly changed the future. After several hours, the trio returned to the ship. Daniel stood in the observation room again, watching stars. He understood now that humans were not only strong because of ships or weapons, but because of choices and loyalty. He thought of Lily and Grace, of the small meal on Arden, and of the lives that had grown from that night. "You see it now," Grace said gently. "The galaxy is not just stars and planets. It is people, memories, and choices. Even small acts matter more than you think. Humans remember, and humans act on those memories in ways no one expects." Daniel nodded slowly. I think I understand. It's strange. I lived my life quietly, fixing machines and surviving, and now all of this exists because I chose to help two girls one night." Lily placed a hand on his shoulder. "Yes, Daniel, and it will continue to grow. Humans never forget. Loyalty, kindness, and memory create strength. Your choice created hope, and hope is stronger than any weapon." Over the next days, Daniel began to adjust to life on the ship. It was enormous, with rooms, laboratories, and areas for training and planning. He learned to navigate hallways, operate simple machinery, and even speak with other humans and aliens who worked aboard. The ship was not just a vehicle, it was a community. And Daniel, who had always lived quietly, was now part of something larger. He visited the bridge frequently, learning about the ships they commanded, the colonies they defended, and the strategies they used. He marveled at the technology, but he understood that technology alone was not enough. What mattered most was the people behind it, the choices made by those with loyalty and compassion. Lily and Grace embodied that truth, and he was humbled to be in their presence. One evening, as the ship traveled between star systems, Daniel sat quietly in the observation room. Lily joined him, bringing 2 cups of warm tea. She handed one to him and smiled. "You are quiet tonight," she said. Daniel sipped his tea, feeling the warmth. I am thinking. All my life I fixed machines, repaired freighters, and helped neighbors quietly. I never imagined it could matter, and now it has changed everything." Lily nodded. "That is the nature of humans. Small acts unnoticed by most can ripple across years and space. You acted with care, and it has returned as strength and hope. The galaxy will remember you, even if you never imagined it." They sat in silence for a while, watching stars pass by. Daniel felt a deep calm. He realized that life was not about wealth, power, or fame. It was about choices, kindness, and actions that mattered to others. He had lived simply, and yet that simplicity had shaped the future. The next weeks were filled with visits to colonies and human settlements. Daniel saw firsthand the impact of the human faction. Planets that had once struggled to survive now thrived. Communities worked together. protected by fleets and guided by leaders who remembered and acted on loyalty. He met children who had been saved by human intervention, adults whose lives had improved because someone chose to help. And he understood that it all traced back in some way to that small act he had done 10 years ago. He began to feel a quiet pride, not in himself, but in humanity. Humans were stronger than anyone expected, not because of ships or weapons, but because of memory, loyalty, and kindness. And he, a simple mechanic from Arden, had unknowingly started it all. One day, as the ship approached another colony, Daniel walked to the main deck. He looked at the planet below, seeing children playing, people working, and the glow of settlements in the distance. He realized that the galaxy was full of possibilities. Small choices mattered, and humans had a unique ability to turn those small choices into something great. Grace joined him quietly. "You see it, don't you?" she asked. Daniel nodded slowly. "Yes, it's incredible. I never imagined that helping two girls could change so much. I understand now. Humans are stronger than I ever knew in ways I never thought about." Grace smiled softly. "And that is why we brought you here. Not for power, not for fame, but to show you that your actions matter. Even the smallest human act can echo across the galaxy. You are living proof." Daniel felt a quiet warmth in his chest. He thought of Arden, the rainy night, and the two girls he had fed. He thought of the lives that had grown from that night and the communities that now thrived. He understood that kindness, loyalty, and memory were more powerful than any weapon, more enduring than any fleet. As the ship moved through space, carrying him across stars and toward new worlds, Daniel finally felt complete. He had lived quietly, helped when he could, and never expected recognition. And yet the galaxy had remembered. Humans never forgot. They acted, repaid, and grew stronger because of simple acts of kindness. And Daniel, the quiet mechanic from Arden, was now part of that story. A story of humans who remembered, acted, and built a future guided not by fear, but by loyalty, courage, and heart. He had never sought greatness, yet he had found it in the quietest, most human way possible. He looked out at the stars, feeling calm and content. The galaxy stretched endlessly before him, full of wonder and possibility. And he knew deep in his heart that small acts could change everything. He had seen it. He had lived it. And he would continue, quietly, humbly, and always with care, knowing that even the smallest kindness could echo across the universe. And so Daniel Price, the man who once fed two hungry girls on a rainy night, traveled among the stars. He saw worlds he had never imagined, met people whose lives were shaped by the ripple of his actions, and understood finally that humans were capable of great strength, not just in power but in heart. The galaxy would never forget, and neither would he.